You've been taught that getting a job works like this. Companies post openings, you apply, they review applications, the best candidate wins. Merit decides the outcome. This is a comfortable story. It makes the world seem fair. But here's the problem. Most of the jobs you're applying for don't exist, not in the way you think they do. The job market isn't a meritocracy, it's theater, and you're watching from the audience while the real decisions happen backstage. Let me explain what I mean by theater. When a company posts a job online, they're performing. They're showing the world that they're fair, that they're giving everyone a chance, that they follow the rules. But research shows that 70 to 80% of jobs are never publicly advertised. They're filled through referrals, through internal promotions, through quiet conversations that happen before the job posting ever goes live. And even when a job is posted publicly, the decision is often already made. The company knows who they want to hire. The posting is a formality. They're legally required to show they considered other candidates, so they collect applications, conduct interviews, and then hire the person they plan to hire all along. You're not really competing. You're participating in a ritual designed to look fair. Here's what's actually happening. There are two separate job markets operating at the same time. The first is the public market. Job boards, LinkedIn, company websites. This is where most people look for work. You send out hundreds of applications. You customize your resume. You write cover letters. You wait for responses that rarely come. This is what I call the broadcast game. Everyone has access to the same information at the same time. If a job is posted online, thousands of people can see it. You're competing with everyone. The second market is private. This is where opportunities are shared through word of mouth, through professional networks, through quiet introductions. Most people don't even know this market exists. And if you're not part of it, you can't access it. This is the private channel game. Information doesn't broadcast. It flows through trusted relationships. And because not everyone has access, there's far less competition. Here's the key difference. Poor people play the broadcast game. Rich people play the private channel game. And these are not the same game. Let's think about what happens when you apply for a job online. You spend hours perfecting your resume. You write a thoughtful cover letter. You hit submit. And then what? Your application goes into a database with thousands of others. Maybe a recruiter spends 6 seconds scanning your resume. Maybe an algorithm filters you out before a human ever sees it. Maybe the position was already filled internally and your application was never seriously considered. You did everything right, but you were never really in the running. Now compare that to what happens in the private channel game. Someone you know mentions that their company is hiring, or someone introduces you to a decision maker, or you meet someone at a private dinner and 3 months later they call you about an opportunity. In this scenario, you're not competing with thousands of people. You're the only candidate, or you're one of 3 people being considered, all of whom were personally referred. The decision isn't based purely on credentials. It's based on trust. And trust comes from relationships. Poor people are taught to optimize for credentials, get good grades, earn degrees, build an impressive resume, collect certifications, make yourself look good on paper. And yes, credentials matter. They get you past the first filter. They prove you're minimally qualified. But here's the problem. Credentials are abundant. Everyone has a degree now. Everyone has skills. Everyone looks good on paper. So what actually differentiates candidates? Access. Rich people understand this. They don't obsess over credentials. They obsess over access. They focus on getting into the right rooms, meeting the right people, building relationships with decision makers. Credentials might get you an interview, but access gets you the job without the interview. Let me give you an example. A poor student graduates from a state school with a 4.0 GPA. Perfect grades, honors, great resume. They apply to 200 jobs. Maybe they get 5 interviews. Maybe they land an entry-level position. Now consider a rich student. They graduate from an Ivy League school with a 2.5 GPA. Mediocre grades, unremarkable resume, but their father knows the CEO or their roommate's mom sits on the board. One phone call, one introduction, and they're hired. Same industry, same type of job, completely different outcomes. This isn't an exception. This is the pattern. You might be wondering, why do companies operate this way? Why not just hire the best candidate from the public pool? The answer is risk. When a company hires someone from a public job posting, they're taking a gamble. They have a resume, maybe a few interviews, but they don't really know this person. They don't know if they'll fit the culture. They don't know if they'll deliver. But when someone is referred by a trusted employee or a trusted contact, the risk drops dramatically. There's social proof. There's a reputation on the line. If someone refers a candidate, they're implicitly vouching for them. And if the hire doesn't work out, there's accountability. The person who made the referral takes some of the blame. This is why referrals are so powerful. It's not about nepotism, though that exists. It's about reducing uncertainty. Companies would rather hire someone they can trust through a personal connection than take a chance on a stranger with a perfect resume. And this is why the private channel game dominates. So why don't poor people just build better networks? Because networks aren't built in public spaces. They're built in private spaces, and private spaces are expensive. Rich people network at country clubs, at alumni events, at private dinners, at exclusive conferences. These environments require money, status, or an invitation. If you don't already have access, you can't get in. Poor people network at job fairs, at public meetups, at LinkedIn. These are open environments. Anyone can attend, which means there's no exclusivity, which means there's no trust density. When you meet someone at a public networking event, you're both there to extract value. Everyone's trying to impress. Everyone's handing out business cards. There's no depth. There's no trust. And without trust, the connection leads nowhere. But when you meet someone at a private retreat or at an alumni dinner with 20 people, you see them repeatedly. You have dinner, you play golf, you attend events together over months or years. Trust builds slowly. And once you have trust, that relationship has economic value. This is why networking advice doesn't work for most people. It's not about networking more. It's about accessing different networks. And most people can't access those networks because those networks are private. They're exclusive, and exclusivity is the entire point. Here's something interesting. Poor people are told to build their personal brand. Post on LinkedIn, share your work, get visible, build a following. And yes, visibility can help. If you have 1 million followers, companies might notice you. But here's the paradox. The most valuable opportunities are invisible. The best jobs aren't posted. The best partnerships aren't announced. The best deals aren't public. Because the moment something becomes public, competition floods in. Rich people understand this. They optimize for access, not visibility. They don't need 1 million followers. They need 5 relationships with the right people. A poor person with a huge online presence might struggle to raise money for a business because investors don't care about followers. They care about trust. And trust comes from private channels, not public performance. Meanwhile, an unknown person with no online presence gets a $10 million check because someone they know introduced them to an investor. The investor trusts the introduction. The deal happens quietly. This is why public reputation is noisy and private trust is valuable. So is there any way out of this system? Yes, but it's difficult. The first escape route is credential arbitrage. You use a credential to access a network you couldn't otherwise reach. The most common example is getting into an elite institution like Harvard or Yale through a scholarship. You're a poor kid. You get into Harvard. Now you have access to the Harvard network. You can attend alumni events. You can meet powerful people. But here's the problem. Even if you get the credential, you still lack cultural fluency. You don't know the codes. You don't know how to signal credibility. First-generation students at elite schools often struggle to leverage the network because they don't know how to navigate it. The second escape route is value capture. You become so valuable in a narrow skill that rich people need you. You're a brilliant engineer, an exceptional doctor, an elite lawyer. You serve rich clients. And over time, through repeated interactions, you build trust. Eventually, they start to see you as a peer. They invite you into their circles. But here's the problem. You need to be in the top 1% of your field. And even then, it takes decades. The third escape route is marriage or mentorship. You marry into a wealthy family or you get adopted by a wealthy mentor. And through that relationship, you gain access to their networks. But here's the problem. You lose your original identity. You're code switching constantly. You never fully belong in either world. These escape routes exist, but the success rate is extremely low. So why doesn't this system change? Because both groups benefit from the current arrangement. Rich people benefit because private channels give them information asymmetry. They hear about opportunities first. They have trust density. They only deal with vetted people, which reduces risk. They have barriers to entry, which keeps out competition and preserves their advantages. But here's the interesting part. Poor people also benefit from not understanding the system. If a poor person truly understands that most jobs are distributed through private networks, that's psychologically devastating. It means that no matter how hard they work, no matter how qualified they are, they can't succeed without network access. And they can't get network access, so their entire strategy is futile. It's much easier psychologically to believe in meritocracy. To believe that success comes from hard work and qualifications. Because if that's true, then they still have a chance. But if they admit that success requires network access, and they don't have network access, then they have no hope. And humans need hope, so they choose to believe in meritocracy, even though it's not true. This is why the system is stable. Rich people protect their access. Poor people protect their hope. And nothing changes. The job market is theater. Companies post openings to appear fair. Candidates apply to feel like they have a chance. Everyone performs their role. But backstage, decisions are made through quiet conversations, through trusted introductions, through networks that most people don't even know exist. This isn't a conspiracy. It's not evil. It's just how the system functions. And understanding this doesn't give you access. But it does give you clarity. You're not failing because you're unqualified. You're failing because you're playing the wrong game. The question is, what do you do with that information?